All right, everyone, welcome back to the Freeman Focus Podcast. I'm your host, Mariano. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, What the Snark, located in Wild Rose. They specialize in custom apparel, hats, hoodies, decals, and branded gear, all designed and produced locally. If you're a business owner in this community and you want your brand to look sharp and professional, you got to check them out. Now, today's episode is definitely a powerful one as we're sitting down with Logan Robertson. He's a motivational speaker, peer support specialist, recovery coach, and the founder of Robertson Recovery Services and Realistic Recovery in Montello, Wisconsin. More importantly, Logan is someone who turned pain into purpose. So let's dive in and let's welcome Logan Robertson. Welcome to the show.
How you doing, Mariano?
Excellent, Logan. Glad to have you on, brother.
Yeah, thanks for offering up your platform even to do this. This is a pretty awesome experience to be able to be here, and I appreciate you offering the space.
Absolutely, man.
I guess for starters, I'd just like to say a huge shout out to Amelia Russell for even connecting the two of us and linking us up. And from what I understand, Mr. Sam Wood himself actually is who connected you with her. So it's pretty cool. I'd love to have an
All
opportunity to sit down with Mr. Sam Wood. That'd be great. I guess I'll just start off by sharing with you what a peer support specialist is in my own definition, I guess, is what I'll share with you. A peer support specialist is unique because it's somebody that has lived experience and somebody that's also trained to be able to sit down with somebody that's struggling with a substance use disorder specifically, or other life experiences that may have been not so kind to them. So yeah, I guess the reason I was so moved to become a peer support specialist is because of my own past and what I've been through and things that have put me in a bad way, I guess you could say. I know that in the past, I'd sat down with clinicians and I'd sat down with therapists at inpatient treatments and outpatient treatments, and I'd done the whole sober living thing. And one thing that was missing in my own journey to recovery was somebody to sit down with me that had walked that walk and had been there and could relate to me. And there's so many things that are not even necessarily minute is probably the wrong word, but it seems that way because there's just so many different little things that are involved with that relationship that can be formed with somebody that has been through that same experience as yourself. So
100% agree.
I guess that being said, if you'd like, I can go ahead and share a little bit about my past and my story and how I got to where I'm at today.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. I'd love to hear that.
Okay, so I was born in Reedsburg, Wisconsin, where I lived for the first 11 years of my life, and while there, my family was not exactly what you would say is well off, and I definitely have met people that have had it much worse. So I'm not catastrophizing or making it seem like I had a terrible, terrible upbringing, but it was not very stellar. I'll tell you that much. My childhood experience was rough, I guess, and I don't necessarily want to go too much in detail on that, but I had a pretty rough childhood experience over and over and over again. And I learned later on that childhood trauma possibly had something to do with why things went the way they went for me later on in life as an adult. But my mom and my dad were together for 17 and a half years. They divorced when I was 11 years old, and I moved with my mother and my little brother, and my other two siblings stayed behind with my dad, or my sister moved out, but was technically legally with my dad. And so that was the first like big life thing after the initial childhood trauma that had gone on that altered me as a person. In hindsight, I learned when my parents split up, obviously that's a big life thing that happens. And we weren't doing very well with two parents having income in the house. So you can imagine it didn't get much better once they divorced and split. My mother, fortunately, was introduced to what I would call the greatest man that I've ever met in my entire life. He was just naturally born that way. He's just a really good man, one of the good ones. He saw that I was not getting Fs, but I was getting zeros in all of my classes because I was not participating in class. I was leaving school. I wasn't turning assignments in. It was just all bad. And then the straw that broke the camel's back for that whole situation was I was running around and stealing out of people's cars and just being a naughty little kid, I guess you could say. And I was at home one day in the shower when I was 12 years old, I think, maybe. Not even. And my brother came to the bathroom door, and this is the first time this ever happened. And he said, "Logan, the cops are here for you." And I'm like 11 and a half, 12 years old. So this is not a normal childhood thing. I learned later on, obviously. But after that, my stepdad, who had only been dating my mother for like a matter of months, like 5 months, 6 months, maybe, just made a bold move. And he told my mom, why don't you move your two boys and you here with me. We'll get him in a new school system. We'll get him a fresh start and we'll see what we can do. And that proceeded to become nothing short of what I would call a miracle for any child that's in that position. I ended up moving to this new place where my stepdad had reputation. He was a really good guy. People liked him a lot. I was given opportunities there that I was never offered living in Reedsburg because of our last name. It wasn't the right name, so I just didn't get things opportunity wise. But when we moved there with my stepfather, who you would become, it was a fresh start. And I was given an opportunity to not only have that fresh start, but also have a male role model in front of me that was doing the dang thing. And he was really
Right.
showing up for me as a man, as a father, that I wish I would have known then everything I know now just to be able to appreciate him more in the moment. I make sure that I give him his flowers now and I tell him like how much it means to me now to know what he did being a man with no children and taking a woman in with her two kids and not only taking them in and providing for them, but wholeheartedly loving them as his own.
Right.
I mean, he taught me to hunt,
Beautiful.
he taught me to fish. He took me to the gym to work out with him. He got me involved in sports, taught me how to throw correctly, baseballs, footballs, you name it. Like he did the whole dad thing better than I've ever seen done, including myself. And I have children today, you know? So I mean, it's he just naturally was a wonderful human being. But so anyways, I you could say things straightened out for me at that point and everything was seemingly going really great and I didn't have any problems all through high school. I was not a party animal. I didn't go get drunk on weekends and stuff. The baseball team that I played on, this is just to give reference to what how much I was not that kid. The baseball team that I played on was a pretty dang good team, and we played together since we were little. And we'd all made a deal that we wouldn't drink our senior year at all until our baseball season was done, at least, because we didn't want anybody to get kicked off of the team because we had a pretty good lineup and everyone had their special place where they needed to be that team.
Right.
That's just to give context as to how much I was not a party animal in high school and I was not that kid that was out breaking rules and being naughty and doing that stuff. And so I went through high school and I had a really good high school experience. Like scholastically, I won't say I was a superstar, but I kept my grades up enough to be able to play sports. And I
They
just
weren't
had a
zeros
really
anymore, right?
no man, no. I had at least D's. It's what I needed to play.
You're on the board, man.
Right. So I went through high school and I had a pretty decent experience, you know, and I ended up getting to my junior year, senior year coming to an end. And I just started to realize at that time, what my understanding at that time was anyways, is that, you know, I'm not a genius. I'm not exactly doing great at this school stuff. So maybe college isn't for me. You know, maybe I'd be better off looking into the services and becoming a military person because I guess, was made to believe at that time that I wasn't exactly a scholastic giant. And so I ended up signing up with the US Army on a delayed entry program contract. So I was 17 and a half and my mother had to sign the contract as well. And I ended up signing a contract with the US Army. Active duty was going to go. And when it came time for me to be ready to ship out to basic training and everything, I'd say probably 2 months or 3 months before that, I ended up going to my high school girlfriend at the time and just kind of being like, listen, I didn't expect to like you this much, you know, for lack of better words. I don't know what to do because if I go through with this contract, I'm going to be in, I believe it was Alaska. And then there was like 3 or 4 different states that I was going to be in, and I wasn't going to be back for a hot minute.
Long time, right?
And I wasn't sure what to do. And so she basically said, I couldn't ask for a better boyfriend than you, blah, 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 blah. And I bit. And I was like, say no more, you know? So I went and I swapped up on contracts and I went with the reserve contract instead because then I could come back to Wisconsin. Atypical story. She broke up with me while I was at basic training. And, you know, I don't blame her at all for that because we were young. Oh, and there was a lot of life ahead of us for both of us. And at the end of the day, it was probably the right thing to do. Anyways, I ended up being attached to the 327th out of Onalaska, Wisconsin. And I came back here and just did my duties here. You know, while I was in the military, I started hanging out with some Marines. And like I jokingly told them, like I signed up with the wrong branch. Like I felt like I was a Marine at core and I had only done what I did to try to be in this relationship and yada, yada. And I started losing motivation for being in the military at that point in time. And then one day these Marines introduced me to crystal meth and they were like, listen, man, this stuff here will get you going, blah, blah, blah. And I'll spare you the semantics if it would just know that I was influenced by these gentlemen to have some fun with this. And at this time, I was single. I had no kids. I had no priorities other than what I had going on. And I, uh, I decided I was going to have some fun. Had anybody told me ahead of time just what would play off of that long term, I probably wouldn't have believed him and would have done it anyways because I was a fool like that at the time. But I'm telling you what, if I did believe him when they would have told me that, I definitely would not have continued on. Long story short, that carried on for probably, I don't know, two years or so. And then the one guy that I'd been hanging out with frequently doing this basically told me, like, you need to leave me alone. I see where you're headed. This isn't good for you. And I looked at him like a big brother. And he just kind of ghosted me because I think hindsight, looking back at it now, I think that he had a habit that he had been living with for a minute and he saw where I was headed and he probably had a conscience and he felt bad because it was very much, I was walked down this path. I didn't just happen upon it,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so he just kind of ghosted me and split. And it's been mind boggling to me now doing what I do as a profession and knowing what I know about recovery and how difficult it is to find a sustained recovery. But for the life of me, I can't tell you why, but I can tell you this is the wholehearted truth. I just stopped using meth at that point in time. I just stopped. And I don't know how, why, when. I have no idea. And as I play it back over and over again, I cannot find a time that I'm like, that's when I made a conscious decision to start doing things differently. I never did. It just stopped.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, as it happens so many times, I just picked up another habit. They call this cross addiction. I started smoking that spice, that K2 stuff, because it wouldn't show up in a urinalysis test.
Right. I've actually tried K2. I think I was like 16, 17. And they're just like, yeah, it's basically like smoking potpourri or some sort of fragrance, whatever, incense. And I'm like, I don't know, man. They're like, well, it kind of looks like grass. It looks like
Right.
herbs a little bit.
Right.
It imitates it. So I don't know. I think they bought it from Satori Imports too, I think at the time. This is like way back in the day.
Yeah, man. We were picking it up at head shops, at
Yeah.
adult
Yeah.
stores and things like
Yep.
that.
Yeah, that's where we got it from.
So
So I thought
because
it was good. Like if they're selling it, then it's okay, right? That's kind of what I thought.
I mean, it was legal
Right.
because they hadn't established laws against it yet. And so in that sense, it inherently had this it's okay feeling to it, yes, because
Right,
it
that's what
wasn't
I
against
thought.
the law. But I'm telling you what, man, what ensued after I picked that up as a habit was no bueno. I ended up moving back home with my mom like a real winner and just kind of being lost in the sauce, man, not knowing not knowing what I was doing, who I was trying to be. I didn't have any kind of guidance, which I'll kind of come back to on later on in our talk today because it has absolutely everything to do with what I'm currently trying to become and be today as a man. But I was just kind of lost and off track and not really doing anything with my life. And my mother basically was like, listen, you need to get a job. You need to start doing something, and this was totally foreign to her because the high school kid that was living with her prior to this was a very, what you would call high speed individual. I was very motivated. I lifted weights 3 to 5 times a week. I was doing sports all year around. I was in choir. I was in a madrigal choir, which is an a cappella choir. I did extracurriculars constantly. I was very involved and I was a very outgoing, good person that didn't do anything like this. So she didn't know how to handle it either. The same way I didn't know how to live life, she didn't know how to guide me because this is not the same kid that left the house.
Right. The script was flipped at that point.
Right. And there is no manual or handbook as to how to do that. So when she said you need to get a job, and I was like, yeah, you're probably right. I didn't completely become a bum. I just didn't know what I was doing or what I wanted to do. And so I ended up getting a job in the Wisconsin Dells at a water park as a lifeguard.
Okay.
And
Which one?
the Wilderness Resort.
Okay. I've never been there. I can't afford that.
That was the cool thing about working there was that I didn't have to afford it. I got to go there every day and got paid to do it.
It's pretty awesome.
But there was a guy that lived in the town next to me that worked there as well, and him and I smoked spice together. And so I just ended up getting a job with him, and I ride shared with him to work, and as it turns out, it was probably the worst thing I could have done because it just enabled me. I'm single.
Right.
I got no kids. I have no responsibilities whatsoever. At this time, I had I had just stopped showing up for my military obligations because I decided that I didn't agree with what the military was anymore, and I had all these childish thoughts and everything, and I ended up getting an other than honorable discharge, for the record, just to put that out there. I did not ever deploy. I never valiantly served our country, and I commend all the men that have and do every day. I turned out I wasn't the guy that did that. But anyways, I was no longer wasn't doing those obligations. I would go to work, hang out at work. After work, very conveniently enough, 2.5 miles down the road, they were selling spice. So my friend and I would just go pick up more, and we'd go home, we'd hang out, we'd smoke, and then we'd go back to work the next day, go pick up more, and we'd come home, hang out and smoke and go pick up over and over again. And then eventually we decided that we were spending too much gas money going back and forth all the time. We might as well just move to the Dells because we worked there and everything. So we moved in together into a place called the Pioneer Inn. And to avoid having an extremely long, drug out story here about all the semantics in the middle of it, I will just share this. We moved to the Dells together. And as you can imagine, the habit just got heavier because it just made it
Right.
that
Got
much
worse.
easier, less in the middle stuff to have to deal with. And while I was working at the Wilderness, I ended up meeting the woman who is now my wife today. And let me tell you what, that poor woman put up with a lot. I put her through it, bro, and she stuck by me the whole time. And it's been a wild ride for us too. I'll just say that. But so while we're living there in the Dells, we ended up having basically just a party scene every single day and just making poor choice after poor choice. My wife now, Amanda, and I met at the Wilderness as I was sharing, and we end up moving in together, and we end up having a mutual friend and a different job, and he owned this security company, and I went and started working with him instead of working at the water park. And her and I kind of left the water park scene and my friend that I had moved there with behind and started our own little life together. And the owner of this security company was the heaviest using drug addict that I've ever met to date. Even in what I do for work now, I have never met somebody that used as copious amounts of drugs and as fast and as hard of drugs. And just it was not a good thing for me to run into because he really matched my energy on the no fucks given type deal, pardon my language. Um
Freedom of
and it,
speech.
so it was while I was working for this security company that I developed, I think, the ugliest part of my personality that I had ever had and would ever see at all ever. I started hanging out with much more serious drug addicts rather than just kids that were getting high and partying and having a woohoo party good time. And a real habit developed. And while working there, I had run into another individual that I befriended, and I was lived 3 blocks away because my wife and I, girlfriend at the time, moved into a house uptown rather than being in the motel down by the water parks and stuff. And man, this is how the devil works, and it's crazy. And I know now today way more than I knew then. But the devil is the sneakiest, slyest, most conniving existing thing ever that has ever existed. And I know this when I see things looking back at them now as to how he made moves that I was unaware of at the time. But so this guy that I met, I'm sorry if I'm kind of all over the place. It's just
No,
kind
you're
of
good,
one.
bro. You're good.
So this
Yeah,
guy that I met,
I'm following.
at the security company, and I befriended, we saw each other, I'd say probably twice a week or so, doing security, lifeguarding, or just random jobs that this agency that I worked for did, contracted jobs out, whether it was housekeeping, lifeguarding, security, all kinds of stuff. But I run into this guy 2 or 3 times a week, and every time I ran into him, I liked him. He was real. One day I'm sitting in my house and I hear this like loud ass bang out in my garage. And I'm like, what the hell was that? So I go out there and I open my garage door, and the lights are off. And then I see this little flickering in the back corner of my garage. And I'm like, hello, hello. And dude's like, hey, what's up, bro? Come over here. Come over here. And so I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, this is weird as hell. So I go back over there and I'm like, what's up? And he's holding a meth pipe and a lighter. And he's like, want some of this? All of that came flooding back immediately. And I was just like, hell yeah. And that was the start of what became absolutely the most treacherous road I had ever traveled. And it was a long, drug out, terrible processes to get me where I fucking finally broke down. But after that, I started like heavily getting back into hard drugs and continuously using. And there was not a day that went by that I wasn't seeking it out or trying to get more of it. And it was just all the rest of that is just drug-a-log. So I'm going to push forward a little bit in my story so that it's not just a continuous story about drug using. I think
Right.
you get the idea of what it looked
100%.
like. Okay. So at that point, I became uh, a very heavy using, very much addicted drug addict. That carried on for another 6 years. So to give you reference, there's 11 years of my life that I had dedicated to drug use and making poor choices and ruining my life. And so for the rest of that time, after that moment I was just sharing about, it was just a continuous drug addict lifestyle that so many of us know all too well. After a while, we ended up relocating to a place called Packwaukee, and the drug use was still going on and very heavily. And I was good at being bad. Like, one of the worst piece of advice is that my dad ever given me was, if you can't be good at it. And I ran with that, man. And so it wasn't that I wasn't breaking the law or making poor choices, is that I wasn't getting caught until I did, obviously. I ended up committing a burglary, theft of movable property, intimidation of a witness, the whole slew, like all real bad. And I had completely gotten away with it until the police started asking my family, and my brother felt that it would benefit me to be incarcerated. He thought maybe I would clean up and stop using drugs if I were to go to jail or prison. And so he told the officers everything they needed to know to take this discovery they had developed that was like a freaking science book in high school thick. And they did just that. And I ended up being convicted of a burglary to a business or dwelling, theft of movable property, all kinds of stuff. And I went to jail. And you would think that at that point I would have realized that I had a problem, but I just didn't. Oh, and while I was in jail, I had those thoughts and that talk with people like, oh, I'm done, man. I can't be doing this no more. And as soon as I hit the bricks, I was back at it again.
Right.
Well, then I ended up just getting, because I was on probation after that, obviously. And I got just the every now and then random little probation hold or this or that. It was like no real serious charges after that anymore. But
One night and you're free the next day.
that 20 days stay, 30-day sanction, all that shit. And then I ended up getting an alternative revocation offered to me, and I went to an inpatient rehab program. And why that's really relevant and crucial is because that's the first taste of a recovery community that I had ever gotten. So prior to that, there's AA meetings, NA meetings, and there was like stuff, but I'd never humored it or gone to it or even given myself rather a chance to succeed in recovery, because I didn't even fathom what recovery was. I just knew it was people that didn't use drugs, which I had no interest in doing at that time. But when I went to this inpatient rehab, I went to Eau Claire, to a place called the Farming Center. And while I was there, I saw a large group of people that knew what recovery was. And it's not like it was some Shangri-La of recovery or anything. It was just my first taste of it. So it was kind of mind-blowing to me to see people that were not only happy being sober, but they were very proud of it and confident
Right.
about it. And they knew it was what was up and it was cool. I needed that experience in order for me to end up being able to come home to a small community and have the ambition to develop just that here. So I would love to tell you right now that I stayed sober after that. I did not. I came back here and the people, places, and things didn't change, and I ended up relapsing and just getting after it again. Well, then I ended up being involved in an outpatient AODA as part of my requirements, as aftercare from my inpatient treatment stay that I had. And while I was in this AODA treatment, my AODA counselor required me to go to a men's group. And there's a gentleman by the name of Jim Webb. I hope he's okay with me sharing that. I didn't ask him for permission ahead of time. But he was, I believe, working for the power of what you know to be God. He was working for the light. And this is somebody that
Amen.
Logan needed to run into my life and cross paths with me in order to shut my ego down, which I later on learned also that ego is your enemy, and it kept me stuck for a long time. And he did that by outsmarting me. He was cooler than me. He was better looking than me. He was everything that I couldn't argue was better than me. And he never put
Right.
that in my face, for the record. It's just what I needed in front of me was a strong, masculine personality that was a good man that also had the confidence to look me in the face and tell me to sit the hell down. And he, as he will tell people, he fights fire with fire. And
Right.
this man ended up becoming the most inspirational, motivational, just pivotal personality that I needed in my life at that time in order for me to possibly contemplate making a change. So after being in this men's group where he confronted me very firmly for the first few sessions that we had as a group and continually after that, whenever I needed it, like a big brother type deal, I ended up at that point in time for the first time deciding that maybe I wanted to actually try. When I went to the Farm and Center, it was a great experience and I learned a lot there and everything, but I still didn't necessarily have the ambition to try. It was just a good experience and it was good vibes from a
It was good to
recovery.
know that it was possible and that things like this existed, but you just weren't ready for it.
It was good to know that it was realistic,
Right.
hence the name.
I like that. Okay, I get it. I get it.
So I ended up going to this men's group and I didn't even stay sober after that. You know, as many a drug addict will tell you, everyone has a different depth to their bottom, as they call it. So I end up back out there using again and making poor choices again. And then I end up getting a felony paraphernalia charge because I was on the run from probation and they showed up at my house and I had a whole plan worked out. I had this little garage thing attached to the back of my house where I would go out the bathroom window onto the roof of that, onto the ground and skedaddle. And then if that wasn't there, there was a window on the other side of the building that had a tree that I could scale down to get to the ground and skedaddle. There was another window on the other side that was my third option that was about a 15-foot drop. And I was fully prepared to jump that as a full-blown drug addict. Whatever it was going to take for me to not have to go square with these cops. Unfortunately for me that day, they came prepared and they came correct. They had every single side of that building covered. There was no way I was getting
Right.
gone. So I went and I dumped what I had in the toilet and I went to go down the stairs. And on my way down the stairs, even knowing that there was a squad on north, south, east, and west of this building, I was telling myself, I opened that door and there's only one officer there. Call me Barry Sanders, bro. I'm gone. I'm running. And
Right.
when I opened that door, there was two officers there holding a dog apiece, like ready to let him go. And so I was like, "Oh, shit, you know." So I
You're not
just
about to run that dog.
hell
You were
no, dude. So
and
I
that was
just
gonna hurt. That was gonna hurt too. You knew it was gonna
I
hurt.
knew it, dude. I just knew it. So I was like, all right, you
Oh,
know, and I gave myself up. And while they were patting me down to put me in the car, it would have been just a probation hold because I didn't have any new charges or anything. They found this click pencil tube in my carpenter pocket of my pants that I had used for a sniffer. And because it had methamphetamine residue on it, it became a felony paraphernalia rather than just a paraphernalia or whatever. And at the time, what I thought to be a real shit luck situation because I literally dumped my dope in the toilet and got rid of it. Like I took the time to be mindful enough to get rid of what was on me. So I thought, so that I wouldn't have this happen. I know now that that was my higher power intervening for the first time in my life that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's many more before that that I just didn't acknowledge. But if it wasn't for that click pencil tube being in my pocket, I would not have made an offer into the Marquette County Treatment Court, which I cannot speak enough good things about the Marquette County Treatment Court. They single-handedly put a team of wraparound services around me to support me in just the correct way to help me maintain the first functional life as an adult that I had ever lived. And they did that by allowing me to be a grown adult and teaching me how to be a grown adult and supporting me while I was learning to do that and being nothing but the coolest and best cheerleaders on my team, helping me grow. Um, it was
yeah.
just a
Shout out Marquette County because that sounds amazing, man. That's awesome.
it's nothing short of I'm probably a little biased, but in my opinion, they are hands down the greatest treatment court in the state of Wisconsin, possibly the entire Midwest. Yes, shout out Marquette County Treatment Court. They are amazing, amazing people. Judge Hindi is, well, he just very recently won the Judge of the Year award, and he's very much recognized. And the Marquette County Treatment Court was nationally recognized just last year for their
That's awesome.
efforts as a treatment court. They're amazing.
God bless them. That's
So
awesome.
all that effort that they put in helping me become the person that I had always wanted to gather myself to be. And it's funny if you hear the word recovery, so many people affiliate that with sobriety. But if you think about the literal definition of recovery and what that is, like you're recovering your life, you're recovering your soul, you're recovering your whole
Healing.
existence as a person. And there's a lot of things being recovered. It's not just stopping using drugs. And they helped me facilitate that in my life. And as I came to the end of treatment court, I got this harebrained idea that I was going to just smoke marijuana, and I was going to take my 20 cigarettes in my pack and throw them in the garbage and replace them with 20 joints or 20 blunts and just smoke marijuana. And that's okay because weed is not unhealthy for you, I thought at the time, and it's totally all right, you know. And so I did that. And this is a really great lesson that I utilize as a peer support, using my lived experience with my peers quite frequently because of the whole California sober argument. I do believe that there are some people that can maintain a functional lifestyle while smoking marijuana. They're not drug addicts, in my opinion. I'm not the end all be all, but for me, as soon as I started smoking weed, I developed this theory afterwards that I don't believe there is such thing as a gateway drug. I believe there is a gateway action, and your addiction doesn't know the difference between marijuana, meth, heroin. It knows you giving in to what you know you shouldn't do
Losing
on a
losing
substance.
self-control.
Right. So for me, I end up smoking weed, and that lasted for like a week and a half before I thought to myself, damn, dude, weed's in my system for 30 days plus, and meth was only in my system for like 4 or 5 days. Like, I'd probably be better off just doing meth. And plus, the meth would probably work this weed out of my system faster because it'll make my whole system move quicker. Like, this is the rationalizing that went on in my mind, all from starting to smoke weed and giving into that gateway action again. And the fact of the matter is, meth is out of your system in 4 or 5 days if you stop using it, which
Right.
I never did. And so I end up using meth again. And that went on for about 4 or 5 months until I end up rolling my car with my children in the back seat, mind you. I was physically sober when it happened. I was not clean and living a recovery lifestyle, but I was physically sober when the car accident happened. And when the police came, they gave me a breathalyzer and I blew zeros, and they gave me a field sobriety test. And the officer said to me, "Are you sure you're sober, Logan?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm 100% positive I'm sober." And he said, "Well, you seem a little worked up right now." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I just rolled my car at 75 miles an hour. I'm a little worked up right now." And then he said, "You know, I know you from treatment court, and I know what's happened since treatment court. So
So
I,
blood work. He's taking you to the hospital.
he's taking me to jail." In the past, what I would have looked at as profiling and throwing the victim mindset in there and being like, "You can't judge me because of what you know about my treatment court and after treatment court, this and that." But the fact of the matter is, if I hadn't been using drugs at all, I would have had nothing to worry about.
Right.
That's on me, you know? So I went to jail. They did a blood draw. I ended up getting released on bond, and I got out on bond, and I did not, because when I rolled my car, Child Protective Services displaced my boys, and they took my children from me, and then they separated them and put them with their grandmothers, one of them with one grandmother and the other with the other. And so, as you can imagine, I wasn't exactly not traumatized after that experience, and I didn't exactly have all this fight in me just to rise up and be a good man right at that very moment. So I stayed relapsed for a little while. Now, this is quite honestly all the stuff that I've shared with you prior to this. It's good relevant information. It's good stuff, but it is nothing compared to, from this moment that I'm about to share with you moving forward. This is the good shit. This is where it really means something today and is relevant. So I came to
I
this
think
point.
right before we break into that, let's pause for a quick commercial break because this is what keeps
Perfect.
people here.
Perfect place for that.
All right. Building a brand or a business takes time and focus. As an entrepreneur or business owner, there comes a point where trying to manage every detail on your own can slow things down. What the Snark helps take some of that off your plate. They provide custom branding, business apparel, drinkware, and precision decals for vehicles, equipment, storefronts, and even custom home goods. A one-stop shop for all your custom gift needs. Located on Main Street in Wild Rose, What the Snark offers custom solutions designed and supported a clear and professional presentation. Visit their shop or reach out to learn more.
Right.
All right, Logan, we are back. Go ahead and pick up right where you left off.
Okay, so all of that poor decision making that I was doing post treatment court, that was brought to an abrupt halt after I got in that car accident. For about 4 months after that car accident, I continued to make poor choices, and it was kind of me just licking my wounds. And it took me a little bit to gather myself. When what you know to be God, Mariano, I believe, saw that I was not able to do for myself what needed to be done, he very much intervened in my life in a way that was so unexplainable that the only thing I could come up with was that it was just that. And later on in working my 12 steps in the 12-step recovery that I do work today, it made it very easy for me to believe that a higher power existed and could restore me to sanity. And this is how. So I was sitting in my truck after I'd been rode hard and put up wet, as you can imagine, because as I shared, I continued on with my poor decision making. And I got to this point where I was sitting in my truck and I had drugs on my passenger seat. I wasn't coming down. I didn't have a lack of drugs. So it wasn't some depression that I was running into because I was all done with my vicious cycle and run like that happens so many times. That wasn't the case this time. I was sitting there in my truck and I was sitting outside of the apartment that I had started to build this family in, memories of my boys in there from when they were infants and growing, and every loving memory of my children were developed while living in that apartment just upstairs from the truck I was sitting in. And I couldn't go there because I had told Child Protective Services that I was not living there because I wanted them to feel that was a safe environment, or know rather that that was a safe environment for my children to come home to be with their mother, because she wasn't a drug addict and she hadn't done anything to deserve this. And those boys didn't deserve to be separated from their mother. This was my doings. And if I was the problem, then I
And you
would
should be
leave.
displaced.
So I had told Child Protective Services that I would not be living there, and I wasn't. I was going from couch to couch, from drug house to drug house, and I was just kind of existing. But I pulled in the parking lot there. My kids were not returned home, so they weren't there. Quite frankly, my girlfriend didn't want me there. I mean, I'm sure she did want me there, but she didn't want me there just as much as she did want me there, because once again, I had ruined our lives. So I'm sitting in my truck outside, and I obviously, as you can imagine, wasn't in the greatest of spirits, and I was just a broken man. And I looked up in the rearview mirror and I saw my own face. And when I saw my own face, I looked at that guy and verbatim, I said, "I fucking hate you for what you've done to us again. Is this what you wanted? Is this cool? Is this what you think is awesome? Is you sitting here right now and your whole life is in shambles again, and you've blamed your mom in the past, you've blamed your brother in the past, you blamed your girlfriend in the past, you blamed every Tom, Dick, and Harry that you could point a finger at in the past as to why your life went to shit. But you know what, Logan? There's only one common denominator in every one of those situations that your life went into shambles, and it's you. You're the motherfucker that was always there. You are the one to blame for why this has happened again." And that was the first time I'd ever taken any kind of accountability in my entire life.
That's huge.
And it was not a beautiful moment. I was bawling and I was snotting all over myself, and I was just in a very broken, bad place. And I proceeded to, and I do not recommend this to anybody, I'm just telling you the whole truth as to what happened. I proceeded to look at that guy in the mirror and I said to him, "You know what? I'll make you a deal. Here's the deal. You go ahead and you pick up one more minor mood altering substance one more fucking time, and I will find us a very beautiful tree and I will blow our fucking head off. Because if I can't stop you from using and you won't stop using, and every time I try to stop using, you somehow rationalize and trick me into using again, I'm over it. I'm sick and tired of my family having to get blindsided with this. And I'm over it. I'm so over it. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm telling you, this is your ultimatum. You go ahead. I don't even give a shit anymore." And because that guy exists inside of this man, he knew I was telling the truth. This was not a bluff. And that's all good and wonderful. But the miracle is what happened 45 minutes after that. And this is what I mean when I say that your God did for me what I couldn't do for myself, Mariano. I hadn't talked with my sponsor in over 6 months or so, because he's a firm believer in who am I to get between you and your bottom. He knew I needed to run my course before I would even be teachable. And so I hadn't talked to him in like 6 months. And 45 minutes after I had this just ego shattering moment in my truck where I was just ready to give up on everything completely, I get a phone call from my sponsor. And he says,
Thank
"I'm
you,
coming to a
Jesus. That's
meeting."
awesome.
He says, "I'm coming to a meeting in Montello. Do you want me to pick you up for it?" And this is the miracle. In the past, prior to this moment, Logan would have always said, having dope on the seat next to me, "Yeah, today's not a good day. I'll call you tomorrow. Maybe we can meet up tomorrow and have some lunch or something." And I would have had some bullshit excuse. I didn't think about a response. I didn't use my human brain and conjure up, what am I going to say to him about this right now? It just came out instantaneously. And I said, "Yeah, can you come pick me up right now?" And I believe wholeheartedly that my higher power entered my body and spoke those words out of my mouth, because I didn't have the gumption to ask for help in that moment, even though I needed it more than I ever did in my entire life. So when I said, "Yeah, can you come pick me up right now?" He didn't hesitate and he said, "I'm on the way." And he came and he picked me up and we went and drove around and talked. And then we went to this meeting. And after the meeting, he said, I don't want to be rude, Logan, but you kind of suck at life right now. And, what do you say? Maybe you move in with me over here and we get you on your feet and just take it day by day, but we get you a start over here and we see what comes of it. And I just said, yeah, I'm okay with that. That'd be all right with me. And so I moved with him that day. I didn't go back. I mean, I didn't have a home to go back to anyways, but he took me in. And the first 2 or 3 days there, obviously I was coming down and I was readjusting.
Withdrawing.
And on day 3, I went to him and I was like, I got to do something, man. I can't just sit here and freeload off you. What do you want me to do? Can I go get a job? And he just grabbed me by the shoulders and he said, all I want from you, Logan, is to stay sober today. And so I just went and I sat down and I chilled out and I ended up going to a meeting that night. And then from that point going forward, I finally got out of my own way and I let someone else drive the bus again because I had let treatment court do that in the past. So I was kind of familiar with it and I knew that it's what I needed to do. And I drank percolated coffee because my sponsor drank percolated coffee. I went to meetings because my sponsor went to meetings. I stopped being picky and having this, well, I want it like this and I want to do that. I just listened, and I ended up going to these meetings and we went to meetings 5, sometimes 6 nights a week. And I was introduced to a whole group of some of the most beautiful, amazing recovery people I've ever met in my life, combined together hundreds of years of recovery under their belts at these meetings that I would go to. And I would sit there and I had stayed sober throughout treatment court and they had done a really amazing job of helping me do that. But I learned going to these meetings where my sponsor lived that I had never worked a recovery program. There's a difference
Okay.
between being sober and being in recovery. So I end up going to these meetings and learning so much about what it is to be a person in recovery and what it is to be a humble person and what it is to be a kind person and just relearning the basics of how to be a good person again. These personalities that I met around these tables absolutely are core things and core people that helped me establish the man that I am today and chose to be as I developed a recovery program that I work. I stayed with my sponsor for, I don't know, 6 or 7 months, I would say. And during my time there, I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be and all these things again. And I had been talking with my significant other and working with Child Protective Services on what a game plan looks like for reintegration and all of that. While I was there, it just clicked in my head that I wanted to help people that suffered from this disease of addiction that I suffered from because I knew firsthand and knew all too well what it was like to have potential. And I hated that word at this moment in time because potential to me is just lack of follow through.
Right. It's not made it. You haven't made it yet if you have potential.
Right. And so I just, something in me just knew that that's what I wanted to do was to help people. And I was sitting there and I was thinking about creating this group and I didn't know how I was going to do it, what I was going to do. And I just started reaching out to a couple people and asking if they maybe wanted to get together once a week and start a group and just talk recovery. And when I'm thinking of a name for this group, I was going to call it Radical Recovery because the literal definition of the word radical is an imminent change that is needed. I thought that was pretty cool. And then my sponsor's girlfriend at the time was like, what about realistic recovery? And it was like, what? And it like came back to me the day that my sober living house manager was pushing me to be better. And I said, Marty, me being clean and sober is unrealistic. And he said, then fucking make it realistic, Logan. And when she said it, it was just like, that's it. That's it. And so from there, I developed this model of my whole mission and my whole objective as realistic recovery, as Robertson Recovery, as Logan Robertson, as a peer support specialist. My whole mission is to help drug addicts that are washed ashore after they've been rode hard, put up wet, thrown around the waves of addiction, and they get that break and they meet me, and I want them to understand it is realistic for you to develop a functional life where you can be healthy and happy. It is very realistic. I really went through a lot where I didn't believe it was, but the fact of the matter is, it is very possible and it is realistic. And that's where the name Realistic Recovery came from.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome.
So I came
That
back
is
to the area.
remarkable.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, and I really much enjoyed it. I tell you that much. So I came back to this area, and I started meeting with a couple of people, and then 3 people, and 6 people, and then word started to spread, and I ended up moving the meeting from Columbia County to Marquette County. We found a church that would accept us to be there one night a week, and we just started growing. it just happened naturally. And we ended up with 12 people. And then we ended up with 15 people every week showing up. And mind you, this is in a town that has a population that is not very much. We have one
Right.
stoplight in our entire county.
Right.
So to have 15 people gathering every week for a like-minded cause and to support each other, it's a pretty big deal. And it just happened on
That's
its own.
huge.
This is not anything, no glory that I deserve. It's what was intended to happen here. I just was the vessel that was put in place to allow it to coagulate and become. And I'm forever grateful for that. But we were at this
God
church.
bless you for getting to where you're at, to see that and acknowledge it. Because a lot of people, when the door opens in front of them and this is the path that they're supposed to travel down, some people don't even know that that's their door, man. They don't even know that they're supposed to walk toward it or turn the knob, bro.
It's
They're looking at a whole different, like life that they want. Versus like what you said when that guy, you seen the guy and he had all this stuff and you thought he was cool and you wanted to be like him, and that was not the guy you needed to be like at all, man.
no, no,
That's
no, no.
that door, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
Well,
happy that you finally opened this one.
let's not forget though that I don't believe I opened it. I really
Right.
firmly believe that God himself snatched me out of the life I was living and threw me where I needed to be. I am
Amen.
not joking you, Mariano. I believe that God spoke, and this is going to sound crazy, but it's just what I really believe. God spoke through my vocal cords, through the phone to my sponsor. Yes, can you come pick me up right now? Because he knew there was a smidgen of a chance that that's not what I was going to say. And I think he
Right.
knew, as he would, what the outcome would be if I didn't say just that. So he did for me what I could not do for myself and spoke the words that needed to be spoken out of my mouth at that moment. What are the odds that after 6 months of
Right.
not speaking to my sponsor, when I am ready to submit and I am ready to receive help because I am done trying, that's the day and that's the moment that my sponsor gets this random idea to call me? What are the odds?
Right.
You know,
It's 100% a blessing, man. It is a
and
miracle. It is a miracle, man. Absolutely.
so we met in this church here in town, and they were very courteous and very wonderful. And we met there for shit, I don't know, 8 months or so. In the fall, we would have campfire meetings outside of my house, and we'd get together and talk recovery on an open, all recovery format. And after being there for a while, a financial opportunity was presented, and it was me. I knew it was me that was supposed to go speak on our behalf. Obviously, it just came to be that way. And so I talked it over with the group of people, and I'm like, listen, guys, here's the deal. This is what's going on right now. This is what I see as an opportunity. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but this is what I think we could possibly put together for a plan. What do you think? And they were like, hell yeah, go get it, Logan.
Do it.
Go make it happen, dude. And so I went and I sat down and I talked with the people. And they told me no. They said we're not comfortable moving forward with you taking control of this much money to go secure a location for a recovery center because you don't have any kind of program management or any kind of project management in your
Experience.
background. And a drug addict Logan, prior to being healed Logan, would have thrown in the towel and been like, it's bullshit. You're just judging me and all that dumb victim mindset stuff. But because luckily I had been put through this basic training of recovery in at my sponsor's place where I'd gone around so many recovering people that were willing to look at me and say, nope, sit down, take the cotton out of your mouth or out of your ears and put it in your mouth and listen. And they were exactly what I needed to learn how to find humility, to learn how to sit down and be present in the moment and how to respond and not react. A reaction is driven by emotion, a response is driven by choice and intellect being used to make a choice. So instead of reacting, I responded, and I totally understood what they were saying because let's be honest, Mariano, if you were the one holding this money, would you give it to somebody that had never handled money like that before, that also
No.
was not too estranged from being an active using drug addict?
Right.
Yeah, me
And
neither.
and the fact that they don't have the experience and the programs already in place to handle this type of things.
Right.
There's
So,
enough stacked against you at that point.
right. So, how I responded to the situation was I had met a gentleman in the past that I respected very much, and he was very good at doing just this. That's what he did for a living was he put recovery centers together and recovery communities. He offered them space to go and flourish and become. And he was the director of a pretty successful recovery community. I don't have his permission, so I'm not going to name names. This,
Understand.
I had met him once before, and I had kind of shared my ambitions with him as to what I wanted to do. And he basically said to me, "Yeah, we'll see if you stick around, kid." And so I knew that this guy not only knew what he was talking about, but had the exact experience that they needed to trust somebody with. And I called him, and I spoke to the man, and I said, "Listen, dude, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm trying to do. This is what I've done so far. This is the roadblock I've run into." And he very graciously just responded with, "Do you think it would help if you had a man with a feather in his hat sitting at the table with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I think it would help a lot, you know?" So he drove from 2 hours away to show up and sit down at a board meeting with me. And he just spoke his piece. And he said, "Listen, I will advocate for Logan. I support Logan in his decisions. However, I can be of use or help to you guys, I'm here for it." And it was that day that I learned what a fiscal sponsor was. And so they ended up contracting a deal with him to be a fiscal sponsor to help facilitate a recovery center opening here in our county. And
So awesome. That is
and
so awesome, bro.
man, it was like that, all of a sudden, we're looking for a place to have. And I was in awe. I couldn't believe that it was happening the way that it was. And, you know, sometimes I find myself having more ambitions and more, but I really need to just humble myself and sit back and just appreciate how miraculous it is that it all came together the way that it has in the first place, you know? So we ended up finding a space and getting it opened up here in Marquette County. And we now have the Realistic Recovery Community Center with another organization as our fiscal sponsor, but we have 15 to 20 on average on Tuesday nights that show up here every Tuesday. We have a meeting on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. for the second shift people that can't make a PM meeting.
Right.
Tuesday night at 7 p.m. we have a meeting for our home group that we've had for over 2 years now. Thursday at 1 p.m. we have an Alcoholics Anonymous step meeting, not sanctioned, but it's a step meeting that goes on here. We go through the 12 steps. And Thursday at 5 p.m. we have a iron sharpens iron men's meeting. And that's kind of
awesome.
where I was talking earlier I would come back to. I firmly believe in the idea and the concept of being the change that you want to see. And I think that had I had an open platform to come to as a young man where I could have met other men that were simply saying, it's cool to be a good man. It is okay to be loving and kind and soft, as well as ferocious and vicious and all these big things that a man's supposed to be. It's all right to also be a very loving and soft man. And it's okay to have feelings. And it's okay for us to embrace each other. And all of these things that I would have benefited from had I had another strong masculine personality to just sit me down and tell me it's okay to be filled with love. Love is very powerful, and it is a very wonderful thing that humans should be flourishing and giving to one another and sharing and being a loving person as well as being a man. You know, those can coexist together nicely. So we just recently created this men's group, and I don't know if it's going to stick or not, but right now we jokingly have the name the Man Ambassadors. It's the
Okay.
ambassadors of men.
Right.
So we have that meeting as well as we have a Narcotics Anonymous sanctioned meeting on Sunday mornings is going to be starting here in the first weekend of March. So this recovery center here has all of those meetings going on every week. And on top of that, I work as a peer support specialist out of this recovery center as well. And so anybody that wants to sit down and just have a one-to-one peer support session, they just got to get a hold of us here and you can come and sit down and I'll very happily have a one-to-one session with anybody that needs to. And we can talk it out. I'll meet you where you're at. I'll help you find you however you want to find you. It's your life. I just very much would love to help you facilitate a healthy, happy one.
That's awesome, man. That's beautiful, bro. That really is, Logan. I mean, like everything that you said from how it started, you know, in your childhood that led you to here, man. That's 100% God's doing, man. Even the bad, because you're meant to help to heal people. That's your purpose in life, right? We all have a purpose. We have a God-given ability that's so natural, that's such a calling that it's undeniable, right? This is a realistic expectation in your life because this is something that Logan himself can do, and he knows he can do it, right? So that's awesome.
I failed to mention a pretty serious part of my story. So when I came back from my sponsor's house and I had this idea that I wanted to pursue helping people, somebody that knew me from when I was sober before, I believe they saw in me more also. And I randomly got this link sent to me for a certified peer support specialist class. And they basically said, you need to apply to do this. you would be great at this. And so I did. And when I did, I found out that the treatment court, Marquette County Treatment Court that I had graduated from, was looking to employ a peer support specialist. When I was about halfway through my class, I saw a job had been
Wow.
posted. Matter of fact, it was so ironic that the the hiring and the process of doing interviews started the day after I took my certification test. So it was
Okay.
just like coincidentally perfect timing. And
Alignment. Yeah. Perfect
so
alignment.
I took the certification test, I passed that. I went in for the interview and I knocked it out of the park, and it was a way for me to be able to come back home to the people that had helped me get sober in the first place. And I now can come full circle and help people that are in the exact position that I was in, so I can be the change that I want to see. Now, these people that are going through the Marquette County Treatment Court also have a peer support specialist to advocate for them, to support them, to talk with them, to more importantly, listen to them when they need to just be listened to. It's yeah, dude, this whole life, this ride that I'm on right now is just nothing but a blessing. And I'm very fortunate to be in a spot where all of the terrible mistakes that I made as a man are now credentials that give me the ability to help people hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls that I went through.
As a person who's struggled with mental health, I know we had talked about that off camera, was that sometimes it's not just the struggle that you're dealing with, or an addiction that you're dealing with. There's a mental health problem that's like countering at the same time. So you're battling two different things. I live next door to a bar, man. I was going through some mental health stuff myself. And this is in Washera County. This is not, I was right on the borderline of Marquette, actually. And yeah, man, I just started drinking more and more. And I live next door to the bar. So it never really interfered with my day to day life because I'd go to work, work 10, 12-hour days, whatever, come home, have a couple drinks, didn't harm anyone, didn't, you know, I figured it was just kind of slowing me down a little bit, just taking it down, taking the edge off, right? Before I knew it, those couple mixed drinks weren't strong enough. And it was a double shot of vodka. I was slamming the first drink down just to, you know, do something.
Yep.
And the second one, and before I knew it, I was falling asleep and I got the fireplace going. Like an ember could have started that place up and lit me up. And any given time, I wouldn't be here to make a difference. But, I pulled myself out of that. I went to a mental behavioral facility. I've had two sheriffs show up at my house for two different separate occasions for a welfare check. And I'm like, I don't want these fucking people here. Get off my property. You're trespassing. The young Mariano in my mindset, I'm like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this shit. I don't care who called you. Get the fuck out of here.
Yep.
Who are you to tell me that you're going to help me? You don't even know what I'm dealing with, man. You don't even, you have no idea what's going on in my mind. You can't do shit. And I had a Christian friend hit me up. She's like, hey, Mariano, I think, I want to come see you, and come visit you or whatever. So she did. And then she convinced me to go to this place in Oshkosh, Mercy something or another, for like behavioral stuff. And I was off. I had like 9 different prescription medications, Vyvanse, anti-anxiety meds. I mean, they had me on trazodone, 100 milligrams of trazodone, like all kinds of stuff to change my mental capacity. I stopped taking all these meds. I don't trust these doctors. I don't trust these people. I don't trust anybody. I can barely even trust myself at this point. So I decided to go to this facility, and they made me take a urine test or whatever and blood work, because they want to see if
Yep.
anything's in my system. I have nothing in me, man, at all. I wasn't smoking weed, nothing, man, nothing. And they're like, well, we're all out of beds here. We don't have, we're booked up. We can't even take you even if we wanted to. I'm just like, I need some mental health because I'm going to lose my shit. And I've had a lot of terrible suicidal thoughts. And I was like, I'm barely holding it together. And they're like, well, we can send you up to St. Elizabeth and Nina. So this is where my recovery started, where my health journey started, because I didn't even know I had a problem, bro. I was like, I drank every day, but I never got into no trouble. It never changed anything in my life. It didn't lead me down any terrible paths. I was just masking my feelings, just trying to not care. And turned my life around. I am now 2.5 years alcohol and nicotine free. Occasionally I'll smoke some CBD,
Attaboy.
God bless, as far as staying California sober, I guess. But, being severe ADHD and dealing with depression and all that other stuff, I kind of feel like CBD kind of helps me like tone it down a little bit whenever I feel like I'm getting worked up. It's all about intention and how you use it. I mean, it's an herbal medicine. In many states, it's considered a medicine. But if your intent is not there,
If what I'm hearing here is correct, it sounds to me like you have made leaps and bounds in the right direction, and that, my friend, is worthy of praise. So kudos. Good
Yeah.
job, Mariano.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
And I was
Trying, man.
I was going to say that to your point about the mental health issue, um, definitely majority of the time with substance use disorder, co-occurring disorders is a very real thing. And in the 12-step fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I've heard from some old timers that our problem as people that are afflicted is 95% thinking and only 5% drinking. It's not the substances that are the problem, it's
Right.
us that's the problem. And when we fix the ism, which is the 95%, it allows us to more easily maintain that other 5% of the problem. So everything you're saying checks out and lines up with that directly. So I would say you're absolutely correct. And I'm really proud of you, man, for
Thanks,
even putting
Logan.
that time into and making those efforts. Good for you. That's a big deal.
Yeah. It's kind of one of the reasons why I started this podcast was because initially I wanted to have some sort of like way that people can come on and communicate their problems or their mental health, or I mean, they could just talk about whatever it is in their day, man. And we kind of talked about this off camera a little bit. The podcast started as the journey, and I only aired one episode, and it was going to be somewhat religious focused. But then I was like, you know what? I don't want people to think that I'm going to shove religion down people's throat. Yes, I believe in God, but I will never force anyone to think what I think or believe what I believe. I can show you who I am, and I can show you how loving and caring I am, and you can do with that with what you will. But I'm going to put that energy out there, and hopefully it reciprocates back to me. That's all I can do, brother. And that's what I'm trying to do here with this podcast. Trying to help communicate things to the community. I might not have all the experience or have all the answers, but I'm meeting great people like you every day, man. And like everyone's making a difference. And united we stand, divided we fall. If we try to work together and try to communicate, share ideas, share experiences, that could change somebody's path, man. The odds are is someone's gonna see this video and they're gonna be like, I'm gonna reach out to that guy or reach out to that program because I need help. I pray to God that one person, at least one person makes a difference.
Reach out to any recovery format. Reach out to anybody that is involved in a recovery lifestyle. If you feel like you want to make that step, you could start by going to your local clinical services and go and receive AODA treatment there, as well as asking them where the local meetings are. And if they're plugged in, which they should be, they could guide you in the right direction. Go on AA's website and find an AA meeting. Go on NA's website, find an NA meeting, whatever it looks like to you. I 100% believe that if you do good things will happen. So if you just
Amen.
make that effort, and yes, if you would love or like to talk with me, I'm more than willing to do that. It's not specifically anything special about me. It's the world of recovery that's very special, and it's an amazing thing. And the power of just people and a group conscience and other people. I've never met a more warm, welcoming group of people than I did around tables of recovery. That's it.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful, man. I'm very grateful that got introduced through Amelia. I know she's going through her own steps and stuff like that, and she shared a little bit of her story with me, and there's still a lot to dive into. Eventually, I'm going to bring her onto the podcast as well.
You
So
should.
we're going to chime in a little bit, and we're going to talk about you. And I'm really excited that we have this platform to communicate to people. I want to help people heal too every day. This is more focused about business than it is personal, but it's my podcast and I can communicate whatever I want. So, I mean, if I want to bring a personal friend on here one of these days to just talk, I'll do that.
I
If I
highly
feel like
recommend
their
that you do that, dude.
messages,
Amelia is a very powerful, strong woman, and she has a wonderful message to share. And I love her personality in general, so that'd be a great idea.
yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely going to bring her on. Another thing I'd like to see happen more of is whenever I do these podcasts, I like to have like some sort of resources. So like links or like, things, if people wanted to reach out for help, I want them to feel confident that they could do so and not feel like they're being put on the spot. So I want to put some links in like the bottom of our video or in our, comments and stuff
All
like
right.
that when I post this online. So that way people can have some sort of resource or somewhere they can reach out to. And, if they call you guys up, and they're in Washera County, send them to Washera Shines or whatever, neighboring, programs are available.
Yep.
I mean, obviously anyone going through something shouldn't go through it alone, right? They feel alone. It's in their head. Like you said, it's 95% them thinking and 5% the ism, right? So
Yep.
they're thinking too much and they need to pull the cotton out of their ears and put it in their mouths, like you said, like you have been told. That's what needs to happen. They need to find someone that's gonna guide them and lead the way.
Or some people. They say the
Yeah.
opposite of addiction is connection, and I really firmly believe that the most beautiful thing about the realistic recovery group is that we didn't just develop a group of people; we developed a community, and that's a
That's
difference.
beautiful.
There's a big
Amen.
difference in that.
I love that. That's beautiful, man. 100%. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to stop out there and visit you guys one of these days and see you in person because
You're always
some of
welcome
the
here, Mariano.
conversations that we've shared, even before leading up to this podcast, very positive, very beneficial. I can tell that you and the team that you're assembling there and the group of people that you have are definitely making a difference in the community because it's all about the mindsets, right? You can
I
change
believe
someone's
you have
mindset.
good reason to be here because about, I don't know, 25 minutes away from here, you seem to have something going on right now as we speak that you could use some time up in this area, I think.
Yeah, eventually what I'd like to see happen is I'd like to get a in-person podcast set up so that way I could have people in it. I don't know if from potentially it might be in Wild Rose, but in Washera County is kind of what I'm thinking because that's kind of where this started at. The idea of the podcast was Washera County, but I'm
I'd
going to
love to
branch
work
out.
with you on getting a podcast set up for myself so that I could bring people that are in recovery, specifically just that lane, and just
Right.
have a whole podcast set up with just recovery talk, specifically just that, like I see you
I
out there,
think that
man. You got so many people in so many different directions of life, and that's awesome. But I would love to be able to have a format and a platform set up so that I could have
I can
people
help
come
you.
on and maybe you take me under your wing a little bit there, Mariano, and teach me how to interview people because I see what you're doing. You do a great job.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. This is God. God gave me the gift of gab. I can talk. It's really remarkable that I get put in this position. I put myself in the position, right? I'm the host of it, but it's remarkable that I get put in this position where I'm the host of the show, but I do more listening than I do talking, right? I'm just taking all this in because it's for the viewers. It's for the audience to absorb.
That's what the best
I'm just
ones
happy to
normally
be a
do.
part of this, right?
It's called actively listening. It's a skill, and you're good at it.
Well, I got yelled at a lot when I was a kid, so they kind of drilled that, like really. You know,
Yeah, you and
I
me
wa
both, buddy.
I was not always a great Mariano, man. I've done some jail time, man. I've dibbled and dabbled a little bit, but now I'm very blessed that I'm in this position, and I'm very blessed that I've met you, Logan. I'm really grateful for all of these new people that I keep meeting. I mean, this is nothing short of a miracle for me, and this isn't costing anyone anything. This didn't cost you anything but
Right?
about an hour and a half of your time, brother. And when it comes to sharing a message with the community, that's all we have is time, bro.
Yeah,
I'll definitely help you set that up.
I appreciate you for that. That'd be great.
Kind of feel like my journey when I first started the first version of what this podcast was going to be failed horribly because I didn't have the right people in place. But I feel like that still needed to exist because people still need a safe place to come to talk about their problems, whether it's anonymously or whatever. You still want to help people, even if you don't know who they are, because you know that there's people out there hurting, man.
And it's unique. Like what you were sharing with me about your whole idea when you first made this whole podcast thing. It's unique because having a safe place to come and vent, that's one thing. But set apart from that, offering a platform for people to anonymously vent to the public. That's cool. That's a unique thing right there, man. And that's I think you're onto something with that. That whatever you're doing, just keep doing it because it's smooth and I like it. And it's good stuff, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I think for this episode, I think we definitely got the message across on what we have happening here in Montello. Really excited. Yeah, that's beautiful. I hope it continues to grow. I'll have to have you back on here in the near future so we can get an update, and see what's happening throughout the year. I've seen like stuff on Facebook. You guys do like what is it, like softball tournaments with like other programs or neighboring county
So the
programs and stuff
Marquette
like
County
that?
Treatment Court has an annual kickball game against
There you
Washera
go.
County's Treatment Court. So we have adjacent counties that are um, collaborating on outside of the courtroom treatment court event, and it's been pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie, but we've had 2 annual fishing tournaments. For
There you go.
realistic recovery. The first one was on 420, and the theme was "Come catch fish, not a buzz." You don't have to smoke on 420 to have fun.
I could visit one of those. I could definitely do that. I'm a
Yeah,
fisherman, man. I love fishing.
we had a fire on the ice event last winter, not this one we're in now in 2024 winter going into 2020, where we had a big bonfire on the ice and ice fished. We have speaker meetings here. We did a gratitude dinner on Thanksgiving. We did a Christmas brunch. We did a New Year's Eve party here. We got stuff going on, man. Yeah, it's we're trying to create a community of people here that can create a life that we don't want to run from.
It's beautiful, man. And it's not just it's not like a physical. I know a lot of people, they take vacations and they take off and they go to Florida for whatever reason, right? But realistically, in your head, man, trying to run away from yourself, it's exhausting. Some people really wear themselves down, and they can't physically go somewhere else. They're in their environment, and if you're growing up in Chicago, product of your environment, sometimes you got to get yourself out of that environment, man. Find the right people, and in this case, I'm really grateful that you found the people that made an impact in your life. Even though it didn't seem at the time that it was what you needed to do, you still knew that it was something that it was calling you, and you didn't ignore it. You withered through it, man. I'm very proud of you, Logan. It's a
I
remarkable
appreciate you.
journey that you've been on thus far. I can only imagine where it's going to take you from here. I mean, you've worked so hard to establish all of this. And, I really hope that I have some friends that are listening out here that, listen to this podcast, because I'm a very popular guy. I've met a lot of people, and I know people that could still use some help. And I hope they hear something positive from this episode. And, I hope they make a change and do something different and do something better.
Sounds good. I appreciate you so much, Mariano. Thank you.
Logan, it was a pleasure having you on the show here, sir. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I'll get this one edited and pushed out. Should be out by tomorrow. And then, yeah, man, again, absolute pleasure to speak with you, man. And I hope you have a blessed rest of your week, Logan.